Make sure we get this tweet up. Just a tad. All right, here we go. It is the Deeper Dive presented by Awesemo.com. I'm Dave Locker, that fine fella to my left.
Sure
to my right. Yeah, to my right. That's Adam Shar. We got an 11-game slate to break down today. A nice one. We're glad to have you with us, of course.
Right, and as always,
I must say, though, Adam, the Deeper Dive.
And I wrote the deep dive today.
I'm Dave Locker,
right
that fine
Wednesday.
fella to my left.
Sure I got to say,
to my right. This
yeah,
is
to my right. That's
one
Adam.
of those slates where you've got 11. You got 11 games. All right, very nice. But at the same time, there is definitely value is barren at most positions. Small forward altogether is pretty barren. It definitely doesn't feel like an 11-game slate. I found myself continuously going back to this Thunder Pelicans game, to even the Atlanta Dallas game. There were a few games that really stood out to me, but a few of them where I have to keep reminding myself they're actually on the slate.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it, though, because it's the first slate we've had in a while. It feels like where there isn't just more or less, three guys that you have to put into your lineup just because of all the value that's out there. So I'm actually pretty excited to get back to, being able to make some reasonable pivots, and you're not just like praying for someone to sprain an ankle for them to fail or something, because they're in such an easy spot to beat their salary.
Yeah, that is the truth. Although, man, DeAnthony Melton, how about this guy? How about DeAnthony Melton and Bryn Forbes last night? It's like the two best value plays on the damn slate. Who would have thought?
Yeah, it really sucks for the people that made that pivot to Bryn Forbes, and you get 38 points, and he still gets outscored by DeAnthony Melton.
But if you played both of them,
well, yeah,
then you're in business. Derek White started at small forward and did absolutely nothing. I believe he finished with 0 actual points. No, I'm sorry. He had 4. He had 24 fantasy points, but compared to Forbes, man, Forbes put up monster numbers. Melton was solid. Lowry was solid, but of course that Spurs game devolved into a blowout, and then it all came crashing down. I will tell you this much, though. I played some on the late night, the night slate with the 2 games, and I'm driving back from hockey. I go to check. It's like, oh, okay, Boban not starting. Maybe I'll leave him in a couple anyway. And he didn't play a minute through almost 3 full quarters, and then still finishes with 26 fantasy points because it's Boban.
Right. Yeah. He just needs to get 12 minutes, and the guy can double.
That's it. That's absolutely it. He played 15 minutes, had 18 and 7. It's just insane against Toronto too. But all right. Yeah. I wanted to give a second so we could all get into this. The echo, you say there's an echo. We're good. All right. Good to know. Welcome, fellas. Josh Gordon, 26, much appreciated. We are going to get started. Let's just get into it now. It's an early one, and we still got to wait for the room to get going here, but we'll throw the retweet out there and just get it rocking, because you know what? We don't have all the time in the world, Adam, and we got to try and do this in a timely fashion. So let's get it rocking. We'll start, as I retweet this, we'll start with Cleveland and New York. David Nwaba, we're still debating whether or not he's going to play, or waiting on whether or not Nwaba is going to play. I don't know how much impact it's going to make now that they're starting to get healthy outside of a select few players, and they have Alec Burks in the rotation. But you have him, you have Cedi Osman, who's playing big minutes, what might be one of the few value plays worth considering on this one. And then aside from that, Larry Nance, who has played much better recently, despite the fewer minutes. He's actually performed better and more efficiently with fewer minutes. But I'll let you jump into this. The Knicks are 1-point favorites on the road, a paltry 213 total here in Cleveland.
I think it's kind of an appealing game in tournaments because, obviously both of these teams suck defensively. There's inconsistent rotations, but starting with Larry Nance here with Tristan Thompson out, he's just been so much more productive when he's getting minutes at the 5 instead of at power forward alongside Thompson. Over the last month in his time alongside Thompson, averaging 0.8 fantasy points per minute, or a little over 0.8 fantasy points per minute, 1.09 fantasy points per minute when Thompson is off the floor. You see his rebounding go up. You see his assist percentage go up. Just a much more productive player in this role. I think it's kind of a scary matchup in that Enes Kanter is a very good rebounder. and Nance is not the kind of offensive player that I expect to really take advantage of Enes Kanter defensively. So, maybe he gets hurt a little bit there, but when you factor in the minutes that he's going to play and the fact that he's going to play them all at center, I think that he's, pretty clearly one of the top plays on the slate. And then you can get into guys like Colin Sexton, who has a 27.5% usage rate over the last month. We've really seen him, take a step forward offensively, at least in looking for his shot. I think, should play 32 to 34 minutes and be a pretty fine option. And Alec Burks as well, someone who's not afraid to go out there and shoot. But Larry Nance really the one that stands out to me from the Cleveland side.
Yeah, I think you're a little higher on Nance than I am. It's not to say I don't like Larry Nance because I think he's a perfectly fine player. I actually removed him from the deep dive. I was about to start writing up Larry Nance and I pulled him last second. It's not to say I don't like him, but I still have some concerns with the fact that this guy, his shooting, he just refuses to shoot. I understand. Sure, last game he took 12 shots, but prior to that, 7-5, 4-5, 3-3-5, 10-3. I'm relying so heavily on the peripherals here, which is fine. I mean, he can rebound, but his rebounding hasn't been that strong. So aside from that, I need him to hit 4 of 4 shots, 4 of 5 shots, 6 of 7 shots. And that's the only reason I think his value actually is a little bit inflated today. It's a good matchup. I have no problem with Larry Nance. I just think with this super low usage that we've seen from him over the past, say, 3 weeks, I just think it lowers his floor, and to me that's a bit concerning. But just a personal opinion there, something I'm a little bit more skeptical about than you, I think.
Yeah, but I think it also has to do with the position he's playing. Larry Nance isn't someone that's going to go, jack up 3-pointers or create much offensively. A lot of his field goal attempts are going to come at the rim. And when Tristan Thompson's in there, you're not getting the offensive rebounds. You're not getting as many opportunities at the rim for Nance. So I do expect him to get, more field goal attempts here along with more rebounds.
Exactly. That's the thing that kind of pushes him over the top is Tristan Thompson won't be playing. He's out, I think, 2 to 4 weeks. I think it's 2 to 4 weeks. And now you've got him playing at the 5, which definitely bolsters his ceiling. I just would like to see, and you're right, the position that you're playing makes a difference, no doubt. But I will also point out too that here's what I think. I think you see a sharp uptick in rebounding from Nance, which is no question given how well Tristan Thompson had been rebounding. But even through Thompson playing really well, he was still a low usage guy, right? Like at his best stretch, he had like an 18, 19% usage rate. That's all I'm saying. I don't disagree whatsoever that Larry Nance at his price point makes for a perfectly good play and a solid one at that. I just wish we'd see a little bit more volume as a shooter to give him that ceiling that we saw before, because there were times where he would shoot a little bit more. But yeah, good matchup, good spot. Playing at the 5 makes this a much more palatable spot. Again, I just think his floor is lower than it had been in the past. Anything else from the Cleveland side?
Nothing that I'm prioritizing. Behind Nance, Sexton and Burks are the most appealing to me, but Nance is clearly my favorite here.
On the other side of this game with the Knicks, you have a few guys reasonably, guys like Tim Hardaway, whose prices come down to 6,800 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, you get Hardaway at 7,000 flat. And we'll obviously get into someone like Mitchell on DraftKings, who's 6,600 coming off a stretch of bad games. But you've got Hardaway. You've got Kevin Knox, who played 41 minutes in his last game. Likely not something you're going to see again today. But Enes Kanter, 6,500. So all of these guys, I think, are very reasonably priced. They're just all ridiculously volatile. And I think that is the reason that you're getting these price points on them. But as you pointed out before we even got to breaking down this game, a lot of them make for sense in tournaments because of the fact that they're so volatile and they're not eating up a large portion of your cap space.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, from like a medium projection standpoint, it's much more difficult to like the Knicks than it was to like Cleveland. Frank Ntilikina seemingly being inserted back into the rotation obviously muddies things a bit. They've suggested they're likely to start Kevin Knox today, which is another example. We talk about it a lot. It helps to secure his minutes potentially, but playing him more minutes alongside Enes Kanter and Tim Hardaway is not going to do any favors for how many field goal attempts he gets up and how involved he is in the offense. So still keeps him from being, like a lock value play for me, just kind of a secondary option. Vonleh, I think, is fine as a secondary option. Same with Hardaway, but nothing that I'm prioritizing from this team.
Yeah. I can't prioritize anyone either. I have tournament plays here, but another thing too is you look at someone in David Fisdale. You really don't have any idea what he's going to do, Adam.
Right.
We can obviously try and guess what he's going to do, right? It's possible. Uh, and with Alonzo Trier already ruled out, we know that Trey Burke is out. It makes sense now that you're going to see some extended run from somebody like, or at least some run from someone like Ntilikina, even though he did play he played 16 minutes on the 8th. That was the last game that Alonzo Trier played, and he played 27 minutes in that game. And then Ntilikina, with Trier out last game, played 20 minutes. Emmanuel Mudiay in that one played 19. So even so, you really don't have any good idea of the type of minutes you're going to get from this backcourt. And I don't even know if it's worth guessing on them.
Right. I mean, it's also a very slow Cleveland team. Yes, they're bad defensively, but you're talking about a team that's going to limit how many possessions you have relative to other teams on the slate that are in faster spots. And it's not like these guys are very efficient. And while they're cheap, we've talked about it before, like $4,500 to $5,000 as a value play is just a completely different ballpark than when you can get someone at like 36 or 3,800 in terms of the likelihood of them actually getting to a score that you're happy with in tournaments. So it's just overall just nothing super appealing here.
Right. I'm with you. Let's keep moving then. Let's talk about the Pacers in Milwaukee, another game where I'm just not really intrigued by. You've got Victor Oladipo, who is $9,000 on DraftKings, and on FanDuel, Oladipo is $9,000 flat. So despite all of this absence that we've seen from Oladipo, who is playing tonight, by the way, you're still paying a premium for a guy who's coming back from a month-long hiatus, almost a full month. His last game was the 17th of Atlanta. So, and it was a knee injury. So you're talking a lower body injury. Very good chance that his minutes are strictly limited tonight. But he still takes away from everybody else. It's not like Evans had been playing well anyway, but it still is going to siphon away value and usage from a number of players. And with Domantas Sabonis' price tag coming down, but still being relatively pricey, I just have trouble really getting to anybody here. And now Miles Turner's salary has come up as well. Maybe you have a different opinion here, but this is an Indiana team that I'm pretty much off the board with today.
No, I'm in the same boat there. Like Oladipo, I wasn't really that interested in them, even if Oladipo was out. But Oladipo coming back just makes it even less appealing. Yeah, I have nothing.
Yeah, it's a whole lot easier to avoid here. You've got 11 games. You've got 21 other teams to choose from. I don't think the Pacers are one you need to take a stand on. They were already spreading the ball around enough without Oladipo. Now he'll come back and take away too much. Even if he only plays like 25 minutes, he's still such a high usage player that you're getting other Indiana players whose price points are way up. For example, Darren Collison, 6,700. Miles Turner, 72. I'm not saying that Oladipo's absence has done a whole lot to make him better, but still, Bojan Bogdanovic is generally not $5,600. You're overpaying for them on a night where Oladipo is back in the rotation, and for me, it isn't necessary against a good Milwaukee defense. Now, on the other side, you've got Milwaukee. This game's in Indiana, Adam. The Bucks are 1.5-point favorites. We have a 217.5 total. Giannis, who was I won't say a late scratch, but definitely pretty close to tip off in that game, was ruled out with, I think it was neck stiffness. He says he's fine, no issues. It was just bothering him a little bit that night. Is Giannis? Because I have other high priced guys that I really like tonight. I don't think Giannis is going to be at the top of my list. What about you?
No, me neither. I mean, obviously you can make an argument for the guy in tournaments because I don't think that we're on an island and saying that we have guys at the top that we like a little bit better than Giannis. Obviously he can be the high scorer on the slate, but just to put it into context, I have him projected for less points than Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, and Joel Embiid. So it's just really difficult to say that I'm prioritizing him here. It's a huge pace down game for Milwaukee. Indiana, one of the slowest teams in the league. But also you just have, Giannis as one of the most expensive guys when there's other players in really good matchup. So if I get some Giannis in tournaments, I'm perfectly fine with it, but I don't expect him to be my highest owned guy out of that top tier.
Right. Me neither. Like you said, though, and I think like we say on every show, it's Giannis, so you can justify him in tournaments any game he's playing. But I don't know if you need to do it here. And also, I do think there is a stark contrast on DraftKings and FanDuel. On DraftKings, he's 11-1. He's $100 less than Davis. He's $200 more expensive than Westbrook. He's $600 more expensive than Embiid. You get the point. On FanDuel, Giannis is 12-2. So he's still cheaper than Anthony Davis, but he's $700 more expensive than Giannis, and $1,700 or than Westbrook, sorry, and $1,700 or no $1,500, I'm sorry, more expensive than Joel Embiid. So there are pricing discrepancies there that are worth considering. And I think 11-1 on DraftKings is pretty fair, but I just don't have a whole lot of interest in planting my flag there or really anywhere in this game, Adam.
Yeah, I think one guy worth pointing out is Chris Middleton on DraftKings at only 6,200 with shooting guard, small forward eligibility. That basically puts him at the same price point as Josh Richardson, who we'll talk about. And I think Richardson's a perfectly fine option with Goran Dragic out, but I think that you'll probably see a lot more ownership on Richardson at that price point than on Middleton. And Middleton, projects for me basically the same as Richardson. So I think Middleton's actually the guy that I'm most interested in from Milwaukee.
I think it's fair. It's just a price thing, I'm assuming.
Yeah, he's cheap.
Yeah. I think outside of that price point, which you're right, is dirt cheap. I mean, yeah, sure, he hasn't played great lately, but you've seen limited minutes and blowouts, and he's suffered from a bunch. The blowouts have been huge recently. I don't know. I have no problem with him. 6,200, not a priority play for me, but at that price, someone you can work in there. I think there are other shooting guards too that are too cheap, and we'll get to them shortly. But first, let's talk about Charlotte and Detroit. You've got the Charlotte Hornets 5.5-point favorites here. It sounds about right. They're actually playing decent. 5.5-point favorites, 217 total. Kemba Walker, Andre Drummond, Blake Griffin is playing after sitting out of that Sixers game with rest. I'll ask you the same question I've asked in a bunch of other games already. Well, actually just Milwaukee, Indiana. Is there anyone in the high range that you're prioritizing here?
Kemba, I think, is a really good play. He's just projecting really highly for me. He's at that same price point as I love in his matchup against Washington, but I think that you'll also see plenty of ownership on Kyrie, whereas Kemba has the same ceiling and maybe goes a little bit overlooked. So that's a spot where I'm at least going to be paying close attention to ownership leading up to lock and checking our ownership projections, because I don't think there's a huge difference at all between Kyrie and Kemba here.
Interesting. I like Kyrie up quite a bit more. We'll get there in a bit, but I actually, the guy that I like here most is actually Andre Drummond. I know Blake Griffin's back in action, but I still think Drummond is very affordable on DraftKings. He's $8,700. And my expectation is that we're going to see a lot of Cody Zeller. They're going to want him out there for large stretches of this game. He played 32 minutes or more in two of his last three. Those came against Towns and Jokic. And then earlier this season against this Detroit team, he played 31.5 minutes as well. So there's also a spot where Drummond just shit all over him. 23 points, 22 rebounds, 65.5 fantasy points. I'm not saying he's going to replicate those numbers tonight, but I do like this spot for Drummond. I have zero concern about this Charlotte front court for a couple of reasons. The first being simple. They're just not a good rebounding front court. They don't have the bodies to rebound well. Whether it be Cody Zeller or Willie Hernan Gomez, they don't have guys, or Frank Kaminsky for that matter. They don't have any good rebounders on this team. They really don't. Marvin Williams is the furthest thing from somebody that's going to take rebounding opportunities away from Andre Drummond. So I could see, easy 20 rebound upside for Drummond here. The Hornets are allowing the 8th most rebounds to their opponents this season. I expect to see that get even worse going forward. Top 10 rebounds to centers. It's just a good matchup for Drummond, who I expect to outmuscle and overpower anyone that's thrown at him in this matchup. What are your thoughts on this Detroit squad?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's a really nice matchup for him. Obviously the position's really deep. I love Joel Embiid, who we'll talk about. I love Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah.
But the price tag in particular at 8,700 just is really nice. He is my favorite guy from the Detroit side. As far as the Detroit value goes, still I believe waiting on news for Reggie Bullock, who went from doubtful to questionable. I haven't seen anything since then. If he's out, then I still think Stanley Johnson, assuming he does play, is an interesting play at $4,000. I think you'll see people go to Luke Kennard potentially because of the game that he had last time. But when you're talking about guys like Galloway and Kennard and Stanley Johnson, that we don't really have a good grasp on how many minutes they're going to play, just because the rotation's so fluid and they're inconsistent producers. I'd rather go to lower owned guys than chase the points from Luke Kennard.
So would I, because another thing to keep in mind too is actually in that last game, we saw Glenn Robinson play 7 minutes, and then he was out. And then do we have confirmation that on Stanley Johnson? Because he was probable last time I saw it.
He was probable last I saw, and then he was a game time decision.
Okay. I just don't see 37 minutes for Kennard seems a little steep. Look, I get that they're missing some bodies, but you're also talking about a dude who dropped 28 points on 11 for 18 shooting. If you're Dwayne Casey, Adam, why are you going to pull him out of the game? There's no point. Right. You just let him run. They didn't have Blake either.
Yeah, it was just a completely different game.
Right. So let's even say, okay, Blake doesn't take minutes away from Kennard, but think about the guys that were out there that are competing for shots. When Blake Griffin comes back on the court with his usage and his heavy shot volume, Luke Kennard isn't exactly going to be able to coexist. So I just don't think this is a spot where you want to chase it. To me, it doesn't make much sense. There are a few guys I'd rather play at that price point that I like a little bit more, despite having some risks in their own right. Anyone else? Oh, I will throw this guy out there. This is just because value is kind of scarce today. I really never like playing him, but Cody Zeller is really cheap, at least on DraftKings. He's 4,400. Again, I think that you're going to see 30 plus minutes from him tonight. This is one of those spots where I would expect James Borrego to say, all right, you know what? He's probably our best chance. It doesn't mean it's a good chance, but he's probably our best chance. He's a 0.9 per minute fantasy point per minute producer. So if you get 32 minutes, which we've seen in 2 of his last 3 games, you're looking at around 28, maybe 30 fantasy points from Zeller. I don't think it's the most terrible spot. But really, that's just kind of a digging to the bottom of the barrel to find some value on a slate that doesn't have much. Do you have anything else from here?
I agree with you on the Zeller minutes, and I think that the $4,400 price tag makes him a good point per dollar option. The thing that I dislike about him is just the opportunity cost that the position has to be factored in.
No question.
That's the problem. If you're building a lineup and you get to your utility spot on DraftKings and you have 4,400 left, then by all means consider Cody Zeller. But I wouldn't be plugging Cody Zeller into my center spot and
no. Certainly not. It's actually, I'm glad you I was going to say the exact same thing. If you've built your lineup, you come to utility, you have 4,400 and you say, okay, I could do worse. I could do worse than this. Now, granted, you also have Dwayne Dedmon at the same price. Guys like Chetty Osman also. So what's up?
Yeah. I think Dedmon being that price does make Zeller kind of an appealing target in that scenario where you have that kind of last guy in, because Dedmon's just going to be more popular. There's no way around.
He is. And Dedmon also, no matter the fact that he's played 30 plus minutes in 2 of his last 3, Dedmon can easily still play 17 minutes in a blowout. We've seen that happen so many times. So it's not like Dedmon's blowout, or it's not like Dedmon's foolproof at all, even though I think he's a way better play on paper and on a point per dollar standpoint is what we're both saying here.
I think from a rotation standpoint, there's less, barring foul trouble and things like that, there's less risk of Cody Zeller just getting yanked out of this game than Dwayne Dedmon. We've seen Atlanta's rotations just be all over the place all season long.
Right. Nico says, anyone feeling love for Embiid tonight? Where is it? Joe Collins. Literally everyone is feeling Embiid. Yeah, pretty much.
That's what I was going to say.
Pretty much. So spot on there. By the way, you guys, any questions you have, feel free to hit us with them in Slack. And if you enjoy our content, you enjoy the videos that we put out, a thumbs up and a subscribe is very much appreciated. It does us a whole lot of favors, and we appreciate you guys as well. Washington and Boston. Let's talk about a game that I actually have, I say actually like this is contrarian, have quite a bit of interest in. The Celtics are only 3-point favorites here, which does make this very interesting. I think it's moved to 3.5 points, but still, 219 total. Big pace up spot for Boston. I want to start on the Celtics side and ask you about a couple of players here. We'll get your take on Irving, but first I want to start with Marcus Morris, because if you look at Marcus Morris this season, a few interesting things pop up. The first one being that Marcus Morris has played 299 minutes with Al Horford this year. He has a 17% usage rate and 0.84 fantasy points per minute. 364 minutes without Horford, 24.7% usage rate and 1.1 fantasy points per minute. That is a really significant it's a really significant increase in both per minute production and in usage for a guy like Marcus Morris on a night where Al Horford is going to sit, Aaron Baines is going to be limited, and as we saw, Brad Stevens isn't exactly keen on giving Daniel Tice 30 plus minutes on another night where he didn't need to. And Robert Williams actually comes in and played 25 minutes, by far the most he's played all year.
Yeah, and so we saw, Marcus Morris obviously have a huge game against the Pelicans, but one thing that stood out going back through Popcorn Machine is you got 32 minutes from Morris, but he also picked up 3 fouls in his first 4.5 minutes of the third quarter. So he actually lost a little bit of playing time there. He also subbed out with 1:43 to go in the game, with the game, out of hand. So I don't think it's crazy to think that maybe Morris pushes like 34 minutes here with Hayward and Horford still out.
Did you see how many? So I was just going to say, did you see how many different lineup variations there were with Morris on the court?
Yeah, he was kind of like the constant there. And I think part of that's probably he came back earlier in the fourth quarter than he probably would have had he not gotten in foul trouble in the third.
Sure.
So you got him out there with, Robert Williams and Semi and those guys. But
it was nice to see that Brad Stevens had no problem playing him with Semi, playing him with Tice, playing him with anybody, really.
Yeah, and it was nice to see that he didn't have any reservations about just playing him and running him out there that many minutes.
Right.
That's something that we had seen in the past as well. So, I think that Morris is actually – I'm higher on Morris now than I was this morning when I did the show with Josh, now that I've gone back through Popcorn Machine and feel like he could really push, 34, 35 minutes here.
Yeah, it's funny, too, because I was looking at him and I said, no, not a bad play. But then you realize, first of all, yes, you have Nance. You have a couple other guys we'll get to, but power forwards and small forward on DraftKings is not that deep. So I think that Marcus Morris does have quite a bit of appeal here. I like him. Look, is he a great rebounder? No, he's got a 10% rebounding rate with or without Horford on the court, but he's going to get opportunities. And it's also a Washington team that, plays at the third or sixth fastest pace in the league. A Washington team that is dead last in opponent rebounding when Dwight Howard's off the court. It's also a Washington team that's allowing the second highest 3-point percentage to opposing forwards on the year. So it's outside of just Horford being out and Baines being limited and Morris getting the minutes. He's projected to get these minutes in a very good matchup. And all of that combines to make him a pretty solid play. We'll get to Irving, but we did have a question from Ricky in chat. He said, what's up with Jaylen Brown over his last 3 games? Can we trust him to keep this up? Adam, I'll let you take this.
I mean, it's still Jaylen Brown. I expect him to be inconsistent. I think that, I don't think the last few games are surprising just because it's something that we've talked about before where he was just playing so poorly, so much worse than we expected him to, that there was almost no way he didn't turn things around at some point unless he was playing through an injury. So I think that, still just kind of projecting him based on the baselines we have going back to, when he first came into the league is probably the way to go. I think that he's still just going to be an inconsistent player who certainly can have a good game here, probably plays around 30 minutes, but also we've seen his price tag pretty quickly rise.
Yeah, and he's also shooting 61% over his last 4 games. So outside of that last game where he shot 6 of 16, but actually took 16 shots, which is nice, and hit 4 from 3 and had 35 fantasy points. Those games before that, this is my concern when you talk about his volatility and his inconsistency. He shot 8 of 11, 7 of 10, and 7 and 9 in those games prior to that, right? This is a guy that on the season has a 42%, is shooting 42% from the field. So yes, Jaylen Brown can put up strong numbers here. I don't doubt that, but I do think it's reasonable to say, look, the guy has a 47% effective field goal rating this season, 47%. That what we've seen recently is bound to come back down. If the volume goes up, then it's a different story. But relying on him to hit 7 to 8 of 9 or 10 shots a game, that's something that we should not be expecting to continue.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's talk about, and again, if you guys got questions, we're happy to answer them as long as they're somewhat relevant and not super obvious. Like that last one was I like that. That last one was good. We more questions like that. The rest of this team, I guess we'll get to Irving last, and first we'll talk about good old Daniel Tice, who didn't fail to disappoint in last game out, but on Monday it's like every value play sucked. Mason Plumlee played in the starting lineup next to Jokic while Trey Lyles comes off the bench. That was expected. It was just one of those nights. But where are you at on Tice here, whose price has come up? And I think we saw a more realistic vision of what we can expect from him. And Aaron Baines is back, despite on a limited basis.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tice is pretty fairly priced. He's 4,600 on DraftKings. I'm not opposed to him because it is such a good matchup here. It's a poor rebounding Washington team, as we've already mentioned. And as long as he can stay out of foul trouble, he should be able to go out there, play around 26 minutes, I would think. So I think he's fine. It's not someone that I expect to go out there and score like 40 points all that often. So I imagine that I'll get some of him, but probably not a ton. I actually have some interest in Marcus Smart at the same price point, though. This is just a game where I think it suits Smart in that, it's a up-tempo game. It's a team that doesn't rebound well. It's a team that doesn't play any defense. I think that, if you get around 30 minutes out of Marcus Smart here, he could actually end up being a pretty good value play.
Yeah. Fergan Korkmaz is starting. We get the Cork in the starting lineup. I just will caution you. We'll get to that game next. Fergan Korkmaz, if you are playing him, because he had a good game last time out. Yep. Just keep in mind, this guy's not good at basketball. However, he played 26 minutes, and, we'll talk about it because that's what we do here on the Deeper Dive. Kyrie Irving, though, Adam, you said you like Kemba more than Irving tonight. Definitely an unpopular take, I think. Does not mean it's the wrong one or a bad one by any means. Just an unpopular one, which can sometimes, work heavily in your favor. I am going to... I thought so.
I said they were.
Oh, okay. Maybe you did. I'm not going to stand by it. I thought you said that.
I could have missed. Maybe I do like Kyrie.
Maybe it was me saying I liked Irving more than you do, or more than I thought you did. And either way, we'll say that you. Well, why don't you say where you're at? How about that? Why don't you explain to the audience where you're at on Irving and Kemba?
Yeah, I mean, I like Kyrie more than I like Kemba. I think it's a phenomenal spot against Washington. Okay. It's a better spot. I may have misspoke. It's completely possible. It's a better spot. My point was just, and actually I've pulled up our ownership projections since, and Kyrie's projected much lower than I thought. My point was just that if we see Kyrie being, 20, we get close to lock if we're projecting him to be like 20% owned or something, and Kemba's 5%, I think that they project very similarly to where I wouldn't be opposed to going to Kemba. But if they're going to be similarly owned, I think that Kyrie is the better play just because of how appealing a spot this is against Washington. Bad defense, Kyrie being more assertive offensively, gets an uptick without Al Horford out there as well.
Right. Yeah, Irving right now on our Awesemo.com ownership projections is definitely lower than I thought he would be as well, Adam. I thought this would be a matchup that people would pounce on, right? But maybe not. I don't know. Maybe not. I still think he's going to be higher than we have him around 8%. I still expect to see him higher than that on DraftKings. We will see. And if you want to get a look at our ownership projections, at our actual projections for every sport, at Alex Baker, aka Awesemo's lineup builder, which is very cool, the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, and the deep dive that Adam and I write every day off and on and labor over that for hours, and a whole lot more behind paywall. You can do all of that for free. All of it for free for a week. All you got to do is use the promo code at the bottom right hand of the screen. You'll see a deeper dive. So you go to awesemo.com, AWESEMO.com. Go to the homepage. Click on Join Now. It's at the top right of the page. When you do that, you will select your plan. And then upon checking out, all you do, put in Deeper Dive, one word, the promo code, and there it is. You have it, a full week free. You can check it out, test the waters before you make any commitments. And we want you to be able to check it out because we think that you'll like it enough to stick around. So Deeper Dive, all one word. Use that promo code when you're checking out, and you get a free week premium. Everything behind paywall at awesomemode.com. All right. So I just want to say quickly before we move on from this, I think you had something to say too. But with Kyrie Irving, I feel like if that ownership projection is even close to accurate, I'm going to like him a lot more than I did earlier in the day because I thought Irving was going to be really popular.
Yeah, so did I. I'm looking at the projections. I think it'll come down to how much ownership Drew Holiday gets. He's the guy up at the top. He's a little bit cheaper than Kyrie and Kemba. But not that I dislike Drew. We'll talk about him. But if we're going to get low ownership on Kyrie, that's the spot where I'm really, really happy to take a stand.
No question. And obviously, we're talking multi-position eligibility on DraftKings. On FanDuel, where Drew's the most expensive shooting guard and he's 9,100, totally different than 7,900 on DraftKings. But everyone should know what you're talking about just to, reinforce in case we missed that. But, man, look, the Wizards, fast-paced team. They're terrible against point guards. I know you don't buy it, but there's still been a lot worse. Almost 6 points per 100 possessions worse defensively with John Wall on the court this year. I think it's a really good spot and a very good price tag for Kyrie Irving. Also, he's $8,500 on FanDuel, which is a really, really friendly price, right? He's $700 less than Ben Simmons. So, yeah, I like this quite a bit.
And if you're someone that likes narratives and it makes you feel better, there's no love lost between these two either. Like Kyrie gets up for these games against Wall.
Yeah, no question. And, hey, this should be a close game. Like, believe it or not, there's 3.5 point spread. So it should be a close game. And if that's the case and you get your 35 plus minutes from Irving, he'll have a tough time not paying his price tag off. What are you doing with Washington? Also bet. Yeah, no question. Right. I mean, seriously, 3.5 points. Again, I thought they'd at least be 6-point favorites, even with Wall on the court.
The Wizards are just so bad.
So nice transition there. What are you doing with this Washington team?
So John Wall's price tag is tempting, but I don't really see myself going there just because he's in the same price range still as Kemba and as Kyrie, who I like more. I'm legitimately concerned about the ankle injury too. He missed the last game. He looked awful against Cleveland. Apparently he's been dealing with this issue off and on all season long. So I'm just still really scared to go to John Wall on a slate this big. When he's probably playing at less than 100% in a tough matchup against Boston, especially with like Kyrie and Kemba's ownership being as low as it is, I just don't really see the need to go to Wall at even lower ownership. So not really that interested there. Like Bradley Beal, I think is fine in tournaments just because in a competitive game, he's probably going to play 40 plus minutes and we know he's going to be very involved in the offense. So he's fine. I think the price is, pretty close to correct, maybe a little bit cheap. Probably the guy that is most interesting to me, and this is assuming that Otto Porter plays. Right now he's questionable, but the guy that is probably most interesting to me is Markieff Morris, just because he's coming off a string of games where he's gotten in foul trouble and his minutes are down. And I think people are starting to project him for fewer minutes as a result. And if he doesn't get in foul trouble, he still should play about 32 minutes at center here. Since over the last month without Dwight Howard on the floor, you have about a 21.8% usage rate for Morris, a 12.5% rebounding percentage. He comes in as, a pretty decent play as long as he's able to stay out of foul trouble.
All right. Yeah. We had another decent question. What do you do if Otto Porter is out? Are you considering a Jeff Green the problem is if Jeff Green enters the starting lineup, with Wall and with Beal out there, his value just drops exponentially. I know he's very cheap, but he's another one of those guys, and we've seen it with so many Washington players that do enter the starting lineup, whether it be Kelly Oubre or Satoransky or Jeff Green. They enter the starting lineup, yes, they get more minutes probably, but their usage drops down to like 10, 13%. And I'm not exaggerating there. It's not hyperbole.
Right. And the other problem is, so if Porter sits, that obviously opens up like 34 minutes. You would give some minutes to Kelly Oubre, you would give some minutes to Jeff Green. One of them probably would start. We don't know which one, but whichever one starts, I would like less just because their usage does go down, like you said. But also with the addition of Sam Decker and with just how many wings they have here, like you have Austin Rivers that can potentially soak up more minutes. Satoransky could soak up more minutes. It just ends up being a situation where I think it's pretty likely that a bunch of guys pick up an extra like 3 to 4 minutes, and it doesn't really make anyone that much better. So yeah, I don't think I would really end up high on anyone different if Porter's out. It would just kind of make me like Morris a little bit more. It would make me like Beal a little bit more.
Yeah. All right. Nelson says if Boston smashes Washington, could Williams, I'm assuming he means Robert Williams, get like 25 minutes again? Highly, highly doubtful. Tice got in early foul trouble. Aaron Baines is back, albeit on a limited basis. I would put Robert Williams in like the 12 to 16 minute range around.
I mean, I have him playing 0 minutes if this game doesn't blow out.
Yeah, I'm saying if it blows out, I'm giving him around 12, 15, 16
yeah,
minutes.
like sure, he could play like the fourth quarter.
Right. That's pretty much it. All right, let's keep it going here. Philly, Brooklyn, Sixers without Jim. Well, is he still doubtful, or has he been officially? He's out. Him and Muscala. What type of question is that when I just say 10 minutes ago that Furkan Korkmaz is starting? Sometimes you get confused. So Muscala out, Korkmaz out. Philly's 5.5 point favorites, 224.5 total. Brooklyn's played them really tight. Well, actually, I say played them really tight this year. The first time they played them, they smashed the Sixers. They just beat the piss out of them, crushed them from 3-point range. And the second game, Jimmy Butler basically orchestrated a comeback and hit that game winner with 0.2 seconds left on the clock. So this has been a Brooklyn team that's been very tough for the Philadelphia 76ers. But Joel Embiid gets a matchup with no Jimmy Butler. And you can look at this with just no Butler. That's fine. But what if you take it a step further and you say, what are Embiid's numbers with no Butler, Covington, or Saric on the court this year, right? Because you're replacing Covington and Saric with guys like Wilson Chandler, right? And guys like now Furkan Korkmaz and not Jimmy Butler, and more minutes for Landry Shamet. So without those three guys on the court this year, Embiid has some ridiculous numbers: a 36% usage rate, 21% rebounding rate, a 20% assist rate, and 1.52 fantasy points per minute. Monster numbers. Another thing, Brooklyn against centers this year, 4th most points, most rebounds, 8th most blocks, and 2nd most free throws. Embiid among all centers is 2nd in scoring, 4th in rebounds, 5th in blocks, and 1st in free throws. So yes, I do think this is a good spot for Embiid. Yes, I will be playing quite a bit of him. And with Butler off the court, replaced by Furkan Korkmaz, with Wilson Chandler playing 30 minutes a night. Yeah, I have no reason. Even the only reason I have to not play Embiid is that he really disappointed me last game. He got 33 minutes. The minutes were not an issue whatsoever. And he just absolutely sucked. And he even had Butler off the court. But I'm going back to the well tonight, Adam.
Yeah, right there with you. I mean, it's a great spot for all the reasons you mentioned. Brooklyn, it's kind of impressive how bad they are at rebounding, like how many rebounds per game they give up, despite the fact that they're not one of the faster teams in the league.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, just a great spot for Embiid there. The price tag's perfectly fine. The only concerns, I mean, obviously, it's just that he plays poorly, but there's no real reason to expect that to happen. Obviously, Butler being out should help him as well. He's talked at length now about how he feels like he's not being used correctly with Jimmy Butler out there. So that shouldn't be an issue tonight. Yeah, I mean, I've Embiid as one of, if not the top scorers on the slate.
Yeah,
I don't think that's a hot take at all.
It's not. I'd still put him. I still have him below Westbrook. And obviously, when it comes to guys like Giannis and Davis, I'm not going to argue with anyone that says, yeah, put them above Embiid. But the easy way to put it, he's definitely in the conversation with all of those guys tonight. And he's 10-5 on DraftKings, perfectly reasonable. 10-7 on FanDuel, also perfectly reasonable. A very, very good spot, and one that I will be, going to a lot tonight. I don't see why you wouldn't, especially given that this game should stay close. Embiid will play 36, 37, maybe 38 minutes if it stays competitive, because they will need him, especially with Butler off. What are you doing with no Korkmaz, with no Butler, with no Muscala and no Butler? I think the biggest thing, obviously, is no Jimmy Butler. Furkan Korkmaz is starting and played 26 minutes in relief effort last game when Butler hit the shelf.
I really don't want to play Korkmaz, but he's so cheap that I don't mind it. I mean,
Yeah.
he's 3,200 on DraftKings. I'm pulling up FanDuel now because I don't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, so I mean, he's 40. He's actually 4,200 at shooting guard on FanDuel. That's not really that appealing. But 3,200 on DraftKings certainly is. It's just so difficult to disappoint at that price tag, especially on this slate where there's not a ton of great value. Like most of the good value's already been priced up because they've been in that situation for a while. So I have Korkmaz projected for like 28 minutes. I have him projected for around 22 DraftKings points. If he actually gets 22, I'm not real happy at that, with that just because of the raw points. But could certainly give me like 27, 28 if he has a good game. It's not a bad matchup. So going to Korkmaz is fine. If you wanted to be more contrarian, I think that, maybe pivoting to Landry Shamet, who is more than capable of getting hot and stealing some minutes away if he's playing well at, lower ownership because he's not starting. You can do that, especially in, larger field, super top heavy tournaments. It's a very, very reasonable way to go.
Agreed. Here's what you need from Korkmaz. It's very simple. You need Ben Simmons to get him some wide open looks, which should not be an issue. And then Korkmaz has to hit them. 58% of his field goal attempts are from three this year. Expect that to be the exact same tonight. Right? If Korkmaz takes 12 shots, 7, 8, 9 of them will be from 3-point range. This is who he is. This is what he does. Always at least half, usually 60+% of his field goal attempts are coming from 3-point range, around 60%. And you're just going to need him to hit him. If he doesn't, it's not going to be a great night. I can promise you that much. He might grab a couple of rebounds. He might even dish out a few assists, but Korkmaz will need to hit some of those open threes, and he's going to get them. So it's that simple. If he hits them, then you're good. If he doesn't, well, at least he was only 3,200. The question is, how many minutes do you expect him to see? You definitely, you talk about Shamet being able to wrangle away some minutes, which is totally true. But right now, what do you have Korkmaz projected to play?
So right now I have Korkmaz at 28. I have Shamet at 28. I have McConnell at 26, and that's with Jonah Bolden picking up like 12 minutes. I think that Muscala being out certainly helps to solidify the minutes for Korkmaz, just because I had expected Muscala to pick up minutes at the 4. So I think that you get Amir Johnson as the backup center, but then you have more minutes available at the 4 that probably go to Jonah Bolden, but potentially could go to Korkmaz as well if they play smaller.
Right. Yeah, I don't expect to see much run at the 4, but maybe a couple of minutes there. I have him at 26 minutes. I think 28's perfectly reasonable. He's not the type of guy that Brett Brown is just going to say, all right, this is what he's playing tonight. If Korkmaz goes out there and bricks 4 straight threes in the first quarter, you're going to see less of him. I can pretty much guarantee that much. But you're right. At his price, you pretty much have to go ahead and pull the trigger whether you want to or not. No, you know what? That's not true. You don't have to. But it's tough to get away from at that price. That's all. Yeah. Especially in a game that should see enough scoring. That it should be up in pace enough. 225 total. I know Brooklyn is one of the more paced down teams, but you're still going to see some points here. And each 2 times these teams have played each other, it's also been very high scoring. Other thoughts on the Sixers? Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say with Korkmaz, it's another spot to pay close attention to ownership projections as we get closer to lock. Because if somehow he's not really going to be that popular at 3,200, then I'm more willing to take a chance on guys like that aren't great point per minute guys. But if, let's say, he's just going to be 30% owned or something, I'm more than willing to just to build my lineups differently, not have a $3,200 punt, hope he scores 20 raw points, and the third of the field just wasted a lineup spot.
Right. Yeah. 20 DraftKings points at 3,200, depending on your lineup, might not kill you, but
yeah, I mean, I still want 30 points.
Yeah, I mean, I want 60.
Well, yeah.
I know, I got you. Did you have anything else on the Sixers?
Wilson Chandler's fine as a value play as well. Should play around 34 minutes here. I think Muscala being out gives him a couple more minutes. And I like Ben Simmons a ton. We didn't talk about him, but should play 36 minutes here. He without Butler, Saric, or Covington on the floor this season. 21.5% usage, 31.8% assist percentage. He's averaged 1.2 fantasy points per minute. And this is a spot where I think he should do really well because of the extra rebounds, the extra or the higher conversion rate that we would expect on his potential assists.
Okay. Yeah, Redick's also going to benefit from this as well. So obviously never a top play because he lacks the peripherals, but Redick has a 25% usage rate with Saric, Butler, and Covington off. That's not bad at all. It's just you're not going to get the assists. You're not going to get the rebounding from, even though he does have an 18% assist rate, which for Redick is quite high. On the Brooklyn side, any interest in guys like D'Angelo Russell? I know people like that he's had success against the Sixers before, and the Sixers have hemorrhaged big games to these ball dominant shoot first guards like Russell. There's no question. But is he someone that tops your list, or anyone else on Brooklyn tonight?
He's really the only one from Brooklyn I have interest in. I'm more interested on FanDuel. I believe he's a $7,100 shooting guard, if I remember correctly. That is a ton of upside there. And he's just the guy that, he's the most likely guy that really keeps them in the game here. He's done well in this matchup before. He is their best scorer. When he plays well, he picks up a couple of extra minutes. So I think he's a good tournament play. I don't see any reason to go to him in cash games. But I think he's more appealing on FanDuel.
Okay, fair enough. We had a question. Would you rather play Korkmaz on FanDuel at 42 or Damian Dotson at 42?
I'm switching to my projections for FanDuel now, but I think my answer is Dotson.
Dotson. Okay. By the way, Aaron Baines, as we know, has a minute limit.
Also starting.
Yes, correct. Starting in Horford's place. Kevin Knox is starting ahead of Mario Hezonja, and David Nwaba, as expected, also has a minute limit. So does Victor Oladipo, as expected. So we'll keep you abreast of any news as we get it. So will the Live Before Lock guys coming up next after us from 6 to 7. Let's talk Memphis. Well, actually, do we need to talk Memphis and Portland? This game right now, you've got a robust 201 total. Memphis 3-point favorites against the Portland team playing their second of a back-to-back after it was a competitive loss, separated a bit at the end, but they lost 111-104 to Houston in Houston last night. Lillard played 39 minutes in that game. CJ McCollum played 39 and a half minutes in that game. Yusuf Nurkic played 31 minutes. And Aminu, who we liked quite a bit, was really solid last night, but also played 37 minutes. So back-to-back on the road, both games on the road, coming into the grindhouse. That actually does concern me, even though this game has a very tight spread.
So I do want to point out I have Korkmaz projected for like 1 fantasy point more than Dotson. So essentially they're the same play. But okay. So take the lower owned one. But yeah, I mean, for the Portland Memphis game, this is just a nightmare. Nurkic's price tag's fine on DraftKings, still not a priority for me. I have nothing else from the Portland side. From the Memphis side, I think Mike Conley's 7,700 on DraftKings is kind of appealing. Still would rather get to like Drew Holiday or Kyrie or Kemba, but there's certainly upside in what is a pace-up spot for Memphis. It's a struggling Portland defense right now. So Conley, I think, is fine. Kyle Anderson at 4,200 on DraftKings is appealing. But overall, this game just sucks.
Ray asks, thoughts on Evan Turner since Harkless is out?
It's still Evan Turner. Like, it's still
an 11-game slate.
Yeah, it's still an 11-game slate. It's still a really paced-down game against a good Memphis defense. And Mo Harkless being out leads to minutes, but it's not like they become more productive minutes. Like, it's still just really unappealing.
Honestly, Evan Turner at 4,000 on DraftKings compared to Korkmaz, both of whom have small forward shooting guard and small forward eligibility. I'll take the $800 discount on Korkmaz, knowing that Evan Turner could give you 15 fantasy points as well. Plus, you're playing the slowest paced team in the entire league, and also a Memphis team that may not be an offensive juggernaut, but this is a very good defensive team. They continue to play excellent defense. Obviously, getting Mike Conley back healthy this year has kind of not even reinvented it. It's put them back on the map defensively, whereas last year that wasn't the case. They have a top 6 defense this year, Adam. So it's not like Turner's playing the Hawks and maybe it'll be worth it. It's a really tough matchup on top of him not being good.
Yeah, I'd rather play Kyle Anderson for 4,200.
So would I, unquestionably. And that's not saying much because I am not a big Kyle Anderson fan.
Yeah, I hate Kyle Anderson, but yeah.
Right. All right, let's talk Pelicans. OKC. This is my favorite game on the slate. Again, not saying much, but hey, that is the truth. 235 total, easily a slate high mark. Thunder 2-point favorites on the road against the Nikola Mirotic list Pelicans. Almost called them the Penguins against the Pelicans who have no Nikola Mirotic. Look, I know it's not an easy spot for Julius Randle, but he's 88 on FanDuel. He's also center eligible on FanDuel. On DraftKings, once in a while, you just get these egregious price points. 7,400, power forward, center eligible, and he's just been an absolute stud.
Yeah, much
That's
more
okay.
appealing for those reasons on DraftKings. The price tag's better, the position's better, but he's basically the same price on DraftKings that he was when he was playing 26 minutes off the bench. Now he should play about 38 minutes, assuming this game stays competitive. Yes, it's a difficult matchup against Steven Adams, but it was you. I think I saw you mention it in Slack chat that they're almost definitely going to
The
stagger
staggering
the
of the minute.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was.
so
Yeah.
Randall's still going to get time against Nerlens Noel. It's and he's just such a productive guy in multiple areas. And even if you run numbers with him on the floor alongside Anthony Davis, you get about a 24% usage rate, 19% rebounding percentage, 12.5% assist percentage. Like he's just not a guy that disappears no matter who he's playing with. So the only argument that I think you can make against Julius Randle that really carries any weight for me is that we currently have him projected for 41% ownership as the highest owned guy on the slate on DraftKings. But again, it's just, it's a guy that's in a completely different role than he's priced for.
Right. Even with Anthony Davis on the floor, you've got 1.25 fantasy point per minute production. Not to mention that he should see between 10 or 12 minutes against the Thunder's bench unit. Now, you'll hear people say, yeah, but Nerlens Noel is a good defender. Nerlens Noel is a good defender, but he's also 37 pounds, right? The guy's I had court seats once to a Sixers game when Noel was still on them, and he was standing at the free throw line, right up against the basket, and you look down at his legs, and you wonder how you wonder how they did not snap off the moment any slight contact is made. He's so small. You have a guy like Julius Randle that will just body the living hell out of him. He doesn't stand a chance. Yeah, he's got some reach. He's got a long wingspan, but that's it. This is, and throughout his entire career, Nerlens Noel has been beat up by more physical bigs. We also had a question in chat earlier today I found very interesting, saying, do you think Anthony Davis's floor is lower with Randall starting when he's on the court instead of Mirotic? And I was thinking about this, or his ceiling. I'm sorry, ceiling lower. I don't know if his ceiling's lower, but I think each night it does cut into him a little bit. And here's why. Randall's a better rebounder than Mirotic. He's a much better passer. He's got like a 15% higher assist rate than Mirotic, but also Randall and Davis have very similar shot selections, where someone like Mirotic attempts more than 50% of his shots from three-point range. So I do think that for Davis, he benefits more from having Mirotic on the court instead of Randall. Again, it's not saying that this means Davis can't go out there and drop 70 fantasy points. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that Randall is an entirely different player than Mirotic, and actually more similar to Davis than he is to Mirotic. That's all.
Yeah, it doesn't make his ceiling lower. It makes the probability of him hitting his ceiling lower.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, for all the reasons you said. Plus, at the beginning of the season, remember Davis was kind of disappointing because Nico was out there running like a 24-25% usage rate and jacking up shots.
Yep.
And then Nico went back and remembered who he is, and he got back to an 18% usage rate. Julius Randle consistently is going to be that 24 to 25% usage guy who also takes rebounds, who also steals assists. So he really does cut into Davis's rates in addition to not spacing the floor like Nico does.
Exactly. Yeah, he's going to be popular, but I still have plenty of interest in Randall. A lot of it being simply because he's going to see good staggered minutes, some without Davis, and even with Davis, he's been perfectly fine. All right, that's nice. We got somebody spamming the hell out of our chat. We'll have to get them out of there. Hold on one second. All right. So okay, we have that game, and then you have Drew Holiday, sorry, who is ridiculously underpriced on DraftKings. I know his assist rate has come down since Tim Frazier started to or entered the starting lineup, but he's also 7,900, and his usage rate has remained constant. And over the 8 games that Frazier has entered the starting lineup, Adam, Drew Holiday leads the entire league in minutes. So it's kind of a give and take situation here.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with Drew, but I do think that if he continues to be projected to be one of the highest owned guys on the slate, I'm going to end up underweight. Just because I think there's a couple things working against him here. For one, Oklahoma City actually is a good defensive team. The minutes are going to be there, which is awesome. I agree the price tag's too low, and he certainly has a nice floor for it. But Tim Frazier cuts into the assists, like you mentioned. Julius Randle cuts into the usage. So now you have him out there with like a 23% usage rate and a 22% assist percentage instead of, a 26% usage rate and a 30% assist percentage. And really high ownership at a price tag that's comparable to Kyrie Irving and Kemba, a little bit more expensive than Mike Conley. That's a spot where I'm fine with going to these other guys and just hoping that Holiday doesn't beat the entire group.
Yep. Ricky asked how far behind on chat I am because we got spammed like 25 minutes ago. That's crazy. No joke. I went back to it and it was just popping up now. So I don't know. I guess it's my computer. Who knows? But yeah, they're gone now. Huh. That's kind of strange. I can't watch chat every second of the show though. So I'm trying my best, fellas. Any interest in Frazier?
Yes. 4,100 with point guard, shooting guard eligibility on DraftKings. Yeah. He played like 32 minutes last game and actually lost a couple of minutes. Could have played a couple more. Yeah, I think he's a little bit too cheap for this spot. Yeah, he's fine. Like I don't have a ton of confidence in him, but I think he's too cheap.
Look, I mentioned this in the deep dive. He's averaging 14 potential assists per game since starting, 8.1 actual assists and 31 minutes per game, right? So he doesn't have a high usage rate at all, but his peripherals aren't bad. 8 assists, 4 rebounds, a steal, 1.5 threes per game. If you can maintain that and give like 8 or 10 points at 4,100, you're really not a bad play in the highest projected scoring game of the night. It's that simple. There's not much more to it than that.
Yeah, exactly.
What about OKC? Tell me where you're at. We got 10 minutes here. Where are you at on Westbrook? Because I really like him tonight, man. I'm going back to that well, even though he shot 4 for 18 last game.
I really like him too. I have him behind Embiid as the second highest scorer on the slate right now. Nothing for me not to like at all. Should play 37 minutes, assuming this game's competitive. Fast-paced New Orleans team, poor team defense overall. Pretty easy spot to see a triple-double from Westbrook.
Yeah, it's that simple too, huh? It really is. Plus the Pelicans defense, backcourt defense has struggled this year. Usually they've been pretty good. Drew Holiday defensively is having the worst season of his career. That's not to say he's bad, but he hasn't exactly been stellar. Pelicans have been carved up by point guards, shoot first guards this year. I like Westbrook a lot, but I also think Paul George at 9K on FanDuel is very interesting, Adam. 9,100. Even since Westbrook returned, you still have Paul George with some really decent rates, like a 28.5% usage rate. The game has the highest total. You're facing a Pelicans team that plays at a top 3 pace, has a bottom 5 defense. And Schroeder's the only guy not named Westbrook or George with a usage rate above 19% since Westbrook's return. And George plays about 50% of his minutes with Schroeder off the court. So I think 91 on FanDuel is very, very reasonable for somebody like Paul George, given how much cheaper he is than Giannis.
Yeah, I really like the price on FanDuel in particular. Not that he's overpriced for me on DraftKings, but there's just, obviously way more options because of the different roster construction. So yeah, I like him a lot on FanDuel.
All right. I think Jeremy Grant is a fine value play given his minutes. Nothing special, kind of like Frazier. Yep. Thoughts on the front court here before we move on?
Yeah, I was going to say Grant's a perfect comparison to Frazier as far as, chances are you're going to get a score that you don't love, but that doesn't really hurt you. Sometimes he'll go out there and surprise you. Schroeder, I think, is fine as well. He's just too cheap. Should play around 30 minutes here. Since Westbrook came back, you have a 25.5% usage rate, 18.5% assist percentage for Dennis Schroeder. 30 minutes in this spot, I think, makes him a pretty strong value play.
All right, that's interesting. Wybing says, Evan and I played high school basketball together. He got into a bad car accident as a kid. That's why he sounds like that. Huh. That's interesting. I don't know if I buy it, but if it's true, well, then I apologize, Evan. Otto Porter is out, by the way. Otto Porter is out. Hey, we're going to close. Go ahead.
No, I just said excellent.
Nice. We're going to close these games. It doesn't do that much for me. We're going to close these games out. But before, I want to let you know, and you already know, it's the 24 days of giveaway where we're giving away every day something to our loyal and beloved viewers and listeners at awesemo.com this holiday season. So as we go on, the prizes only get better, right? And this week, throughout the week, we're giving away to one random winner each day a package of their choosing, whether you want it to be rest of season football, basketball, golf, you name it. We've got it at awesemo.com. Whatever you want, you win it, you got it. All you have to do is very simple. Like this video, and after the video ends, comment beneath. Adam, any ideas on comments today?
No.
Okay. Comment on whether or not you think tomorrow's show. No, that won't work. Just, you know what? How about this? We'll leave it up. This is a bad idea, but we'll leave it up to you. We'll leave it up to you tonight. I don't have anything creative or fancy. We'll leave it up to you. All you got to do is comment whatever you'd like. Could be good or bad, indifferent, preferably good and encouraging. But if not, that's all right as well. We still like you. All you got to do is like the video and comment beneath, and you're automatically entered to win. And on the 24th, on Christmas Eve, we are giving away a free all-access premium annual package to one lucky winner, 365 days, a full calendar year behind paywall, $700 value. So all you got to do is like it, like the video, comment beneath after the show for your chance to win our present from us to you at awesemo.com. And one more thing, over at yahoo.com, we talked about this yesterday, huge prize pool tournament with $250,000 in guaranteed overlay. That's right. Not making this up. $1 million total prize pool with it's $250,000 in guaranteed overlay and only a 10 entry max. So there's no $150 or 150 max entries in this one at all. So it gives you a legitimate chance of winning some decent money without having to compete against the guys throwing in all those lineups. So here's what you do. Go to sports.yahoo.com/dailyfantasy, sports.yahoo.com/dailyfantasy, and use the promo code AWESEMO. When you sign up, you'll get $30 back on any deposit of $30 or more. sports.yahoo.com/dailyfantasy and use the promo code AWESEMO for your chance to win a pretty decent contest here with a 10 max and $250,000 in guaranteed overlay for NFL Week 15. Hopefully, we'll see you there. All right, now that that's out of the way, Adam, Dallas and Atlanta, what do you got here?
Love this Dallas team. DeAndre Jordan in particular, $7,000 on FanDuel is just egregious, and I don't know how he's not like the highest owned center at that price tag. He actually sees a little bit of a usage bump without Dennis Smith on the floor this year, but the really appealing part is just the pace of this game, the fact that Atlanta is an incredibly inefficient shooting team, and they're one of the worst rebounding teams in the league. It just wouldn't be surprising at all to see DeAndre Jordan throw like a 20-point, rebound game out there today at a really cheap price tag on FanDuel, a $7,300 price tag on DraftKings. Really, really like him a lot. I think Luka Doncic is a very good cash play. Not as interested in him in tournaments just because the volatility hasn't really been there for him so far this season. We haven't seen him just put up ceiling games yet. And so it makes it a little bit tougher to get there in tournaments. But in cash games, I think he's a really good play. Harrison Barnes more so on FanDuel than DraftKings because the small forward position is so bad. I think he stands out there. Wes Matthews at 4,500 on DraftKings is a top value for me, especially with guard and forward eligibility. And then there's actually one spot that in tournaments I think is really different than cash games. So Jalen Brunson's been playing like 32 minutes. I like him in cash.
I was going to go there if you didn't.
Yeah, I like him in cash. He's 3,800 on DraftKings. I think it's a really, really good cash play. It's fine in tournaments too. But what I wanted to point out was that we currently have him projected as one of the highest owned guys on the slate. And on DraftKings right now, where JJ Barea is 4,400, Brunson's 38. I have Brunson projected for 30 minutes. I have Barea projected for 18, and I still have Barea projected for more fantasy points. So, and it's not hard to see, like if Brunson doesn't have a great game and Barea gets to like 22, 24 minutes, that he just kills his price point. He doesn't have ownership. Right. So I think that's actually a really, really good tournament pivot to make.
So do I. Jaylen Brown is ruled out today. So Marcus Smart becomes a whole lot more appealing. Keep that in mind. We're running out of time. So I want to point this out. with Brunson, he's shooting really, really well in those games. So just be aware that if he's not shooting 7 for 9, 78% from the field, you might not get those numbers, but 30 plus minutes at that price is perfectly reasonable. Jalen Brunson, but I really like Luka here starting at the point. With Barea and Dennis Smith off the court this year, he's got very solid numbers, and I think that continues against the fastest paced team in the league. For Atlanta, I don't really have much here. Trae Young is too cheap. Jeremy Lin is out. Kent Bazemore's fine. I think Dwayne Dedmon would be the guy that I'm looking to here. We got to hurry up, but is there anyone you like here?
No, I'm right there with you. Trae Young projects well, but I am scared just because he's a jump shooter who has said that he's dealing with fatigue. So I'm limiting exposure for that reason. Collins is fine. Bazemore's fine. Dedmon at 4,400 is a really good play.
All right. Miami and Utah. Donovan Mitchell's cheap, 66 on DraftKings. Josh Richardson's fine with Goran Dragic out. Bam's prices come up. Are you going to this game heavily?
The Utah side on DraftKings in particular, Rubio, Mitchell, Gobert, I think are all really underpriced.
All right. And if you are a member at Awesome, you can definitely check out the deep dive, which has all of this covered for anything that we miss. And Live Before Lock's coming up next. So you got an hour there. They can fill you in on all of the injury news that we aren't able to get to, being that we only have an hour and 15 minutes. Sacramento, Minnesota. I like Marvin Bagley a lot. I think he's going to see good minutes against Dario Saric. Their rotations line up really nicely. So that's a spot that I'm going to go to here. And I think he'll be very much overlooked given how much people like Nance and other players. And he sucked over his last 3 games. And Willie Cauley-Stein is still way too cheap on DraftKings, averaging 33 minutes per game in games decided by 10 or fewer points this season. That's where I'm at on Minnesota, or on Sacramento. What are you doing with this game?
I agree with you on those guys. From the Minnesota side, it's really just Karl Anthony Towns for me. I obviously like Embiid more, but I think that everyone likes Embiid more, and it just seems like a situation where you can get very similar upside from Towns at lower ownership in tournaments.
All right. And again, look, we try and do our best here. It's tough to get through it. Minnesota, Towns in tournaments. Aside from that, there's not much for me here. It's Bagley and Willie Cauley-Stein. I'll let you close it out. Golden State and Toronto. Kawhi Leonard's like legit questionable. So I don't even know if this was a whole back-to-back thing as much as a questionable thing. Warriors 6.5-point favorites at the Oracle, Adam. They are 7 points now, 227.5 total. The floor is yours. Take it away and we'll close it out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Kawhi news is huge. If he's in, I like Kawhi. I don't really like anyone else on Toronto. If he's out, then just like last night, you get Kyle Lowry, you get Ibaka, you get Fred VanVleet, Siakam. All these guys become very good plays. And then on the other side, I like Kevin Durant regardless. I think that his price tags come down too much. He's only 9,600 on DraftKings. But if Kawhi's out, it obviously becomes an even more appealing spot. Steph Curry's more attractive on FanDuel than DraftKings, where he's 9,200. And one guy I pointed out this morning, and I still like it, is Kevon Looney at 3,700 on DraftKings. I think probably goes overlooked, but I think you still get another 26 to 28 minutes here.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys. We wish you the best of luck. Don't forget, 24 days of giveaways. Like the video and comment underneath. We will see you back here tomorrow. Another short slate, I think an 8 p.m. start time. Have a great night tonight. Good luck, and we'll catch you back here tomorrow on the deeper dive. Stick around. Live Before Lock coming up next.
DraftKings, where he's 9,200. And one guy I pointed out this morning, and I still like it, is Kevon Looney at 3,700 on DraftKings. I think